All right, West Virginia fans, the season has gone by in the blink of an eye. We are at our final game, the final exam. And this weekend's matchup is going to be a tough one. We're playing a very highly touted, highly ranked Texas Tech Red Raider team, and it will be a massive challenge for the West Virginia Mountaineers in this one. In today's episode, we'll break down some of the storylines in the game, break down Texas Tech as a team, and talk about this game as a whole on Saturday. Before we do so, if you're a West Virginia fan, please remember to like and subscribe to JerseyEER. We really appreciate all the support that we have been getting. So if you are a Mountaineer fan and enjoy good content, definitely like and subscribe to the show. With that being said, let's get into this weekend's matchup. So let's start off with the series history. A very streaky series, as you can see from the graphic. West Virginia has had their moments in this one. Texas Tech has had their moments in this one. And it's been, like I said, just very streaky. Kind of funny to think that West Virginia, a lot of the success was during the Patrick Mahomes years. You know, Patrick Mahomes never beat West Virginia, which is really hard to believe. I love telling my students that at school because they are huge Patrick Mahomes fans. He's a very popular player. So I always throw that little nugget in that he never beat West Virginia. But then ever since like the Neil Brown era started, Texas Tech has really taken over in this one. They've won 5 out of the last 6, and there's been some really ugly losses for West Virginia in this matchup, including last year's game. So definitely a good series, but a very streaky series. And like I said, West Virginia is gonna be the big underdog going into this one. All right, so let's look at how these teams got here. Let's start with Texas Tech. Texas Tech has been an absolute juggernaut this year. They've spent a lot of money in the portal. That was one of the biggest storylines coming into the season is how much money they spent and invested in this team. And let's face it, it's paying off for them. If you look at their schedule, the non-conference schedule was not difficult at all. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State, and Oregon State, some of the worst non-conference schedules that you're going to see, but they took care of business there. Had a test against Utah, passed that test at flying colors, winning 34-10. Crushed Houston, crushed Kansas, lost to Arizona State, which was a little bit surprising. But then ever since then, they've been rolling since. Oklahoma State, 42-0 shutout. Kansas State, no problem. BYU, no problem. UCF, no problem. So this is the top team in the Big 12. I think they're a legitimate college football playoff contender based on the results that we have seen from them. And this is going to be by far West Virginia's biggest challenge. On the other side of it, you look at West Virginia, a team that started off very, very slowly. A win over Robert Morris, the loss to Ohio, which really stings. If they beat Ohio, they have a chance to have a bowl eligible game this weekend if they win. But that loss against Ohio really sunk them behind the 8 ball. We obviously know about the win versus Pitt, but then the start of Big 12 play was just dreadful with the losses to Kansas, Utah, BYU, UCF, and then TCU. But then once November ball started playing, West Virginia got some momentum. And they had a win over Houston and a win over Colorado. And they lost a really tough one 2 weeks ago to Arizona State, but they really battled in that game, and there was multiple chances for them to win that game. So they've been playing at a much improved rate this little last half of the season. So hopefully they can continue that on Saturday because they're going to need it versus a very, very talented Texas Tech team. You can see here it's a 12 p.m. kick on ESPN, 23.5-point underdog for West Virginia at home. I cannot remember the last time that we were that high of an underdog at home in Big 12 play. I mean, that is just insane, but it makes sense if you look at Texas Tech and what they've done to other teams, and they've blown out pretty much everybody that they've played this year besides that one game against Arizona State. It's not that crazy. So it'll be a partly cloudy day, high of 39 degrees. So who knows? Maybe that will work to West Virginia's benefit with Texas Tech coming over here. It's a true blue game, and it's senior day as well. So that's kind of the tail of the tape between these two. And then a lot on the line here as far as Big 12 conference play goes. You can see the standings. West Virginia is in 14th, and Texas Tech is at number 1. And there's 4 teams available that are left to play in the Big 12 championship game. That is Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, and Arizona State. This one might not matter because on Friday there's some big games coming up between Arizona State and Arizona, and then Utah and Kansas. So if either of those teams stub their toe and lose, Texas Tech is going to get in. So right, it could have some Big 12 championship implications or it could not. It's all going to depend on today's games and things like that. But like I said, potentially this could be a spoiler for West Virginia to take out Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. So keep an eye on today's results and obviously tomorrow's. So the first storyline I want to cover with West Virginia is Senior Day. This is a massive senior class. It's interesting though because a lot of these guys have been here for 5 to 6 months, and it's just the world that we're living in with college football, especially with a first-year head coach. You know how to replace a bunch of your roster. There's a lot of guys on here that I enjoyed watching play. The 2 guys you see on the graphic, Weimer and Jordan Scruggs, love watching those guys play. Fred Perry, obviously, Chase Wilson. There's a lot of good guys on here that I'm going to miss watching for the West Virginia Mountaineers. But I think one of the biggest things with this storyline is for a lot of these guys, this is the last time that they're going to lace up the cleats, right? It's the last time that they're going to put the pads on and possibly their last football game. How many guys on the graphic there are you going to see playing on Sundays? Not many, right? Maybe Michael Coates Jr., maybe Fred Perry, right? But other than that, a lot of these guys probably aren't going to play at the next level. So this is a chance for them to empty the tanks and give it their all because there is no tomorrow, literally, for these players. This is going to be it for them. So I appreciate the senior class because they've only been here, like I said, most of them for 6 months. But the way that they battled and showed grit at the end of the season and didn't mail it in says a lot about the character of this team. So I'll be watching for some of the seniors in their last games to see how they perform. I know they're going to want to go out on a high note. And then this is also a big recruiting weekend for West Virginia that we've been climbing the rankings as of late with some of the bigger guys that we have gotten in the fold. There's a lot of rumors going around over Thanksgiving of some potential other players that we can get, but this is the last time to get people on campus in a game environment. National Signing Day is this Wednesday, and West Virginia is going to want to continue to climb these rankings and hold steady. So last little push here. I know there's a dead period in December after signing day. So this is a massive recruiting weekend for West Virginia. Hopefully the crowd is good enough to impress the recruits. I know it's a difficult game to get to for people because of the holiday weekend and there's not much to play for it as far as if you're West Virginia, but it is a big recruiting weekend. I think it's one of the top stories heading into the weekend. And then let's face it, the game is important on Saturday, but I think the more important game is the game after the game, which is players making their decisions with the NCAA transfer portal. So again, I've mentioned this a few times on the show. One of my least favorite times of the year is for college athletics is right now, seeing guys get tampered with, seeing your best players hit the transfer portal. Definitely don't like it. I mean, it's good for a content creator because I have stuff to talk about, especially when we start adding players. But just a really tough time of the year for college football rosters, especially if you're West Virginia. So I think we have a good chance at retaining a lot of our talent. And I'll be watching this after the game to see which players declare and which players don't declare after this game, because sometimes this stuff happens very quickly. West Virginia had a head start on this during the bye week, so I think you could see a lot of action soon after the game is over on Saturday. All right, let's talk about Texas Tech because they're extremely talented, as I've said. They're a legit college football playoff contender, and they can make some noise once they get into this thing. So let's start with Baron Morton, someone that West Virginia fans are extremely familiar with. So you see this year's stats, over 2,000 yards passing, a nice touchdown to interception ratio, 17-14 for him. Last year, balled out against West Virginia, 26 for 41, 359 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. That was one of the worst West Virginia performances that I can remember last year. That game was ugly, and it was over in the first quarter. And then 2023 played against West Virginia as well. 13 for 37, 158 yards, a touchdown, and 0 interceptions. If you remember that game, it was a very ugly game. West Virginia won it with Nico Markiel as the quarterback. So West Virginia pulled that one out. It was one of our most recent wins over them because we haven't had many. So Baron Morton has played this game numerous times. We're very familiar with him. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the Big 12 if you look at how he is playing this year, and he is a solid person at that position. All right, let's look at their running game. So a nice duo here for Texas Tech. Cameron Dickey, 168 carries, 944 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Gonna surpass that 1,000-yard number most likely this weekend. And then Jacoby Williams, 647 yards, 5 touchdowns, averaging almost 6 yards a carry. So a nice duo of backs for Texas Tech. And they have a lot of guys in the passing game with some really nice numbers. You look at Caleb Douglas, 48 balls caught for nearly 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. Reggie Virgil, 45 catches, 561 yards and 6 touchdowns. Coy Eakin, 41 catches, 532 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then their tight end, Terrence Carter, 33 passes caught, 432 yards and 5 touchdowns. So a really dynamic offense. If you look at the two running backs they have and the pass catchers, they can beat you in multiple ways. You can't just key on one guy. So this will be an extreme challenge for the West Virginia defense on Saturday. And then let's talk about Jacob Rodriguez. He's gotten a lot of hype. He's even considered as a Heisman contender at this point in the season, which is super impressive for him because he plays on the defensive side of the ball. You can see it with 97 tackles, 4 interceptions, 7 forced fumble, and 1 sack. So the 7 forced fumbles is extremely impressive. You're averaging nearly 1 a game at that point, which is just insane. Rich Rodriguez talked about this guy during his weekly press conference. I just want to play that clip of Rich Rodriguez talking about Jacob Rodriguez.
Tech's linebacker Jacob Rodriguez. I mean, people are talking about him in the Heisman Trophy conversation.
Yeah, he's one of the most disruptive backers you've seen. You talk about punching the ball. I think it's a trend. You see it on football at all levels, in NFL and college. I mean, guys that are going and they're wrapping the tackle, but they're literally throwing a punch and knocking the ball out. He's the best I've ever seen at it. And I know it's kind of a newer thing that's been happening the last couple of years, but he's caused a lot of fumbles, and you can see it when he chases somebody down. He's intentionally coming to punch the ball out, and he's really good at it. He's very athletic, and he's deserved of all the accolades that he's getting. He's deserved of it. He plays hard all the time. You can see he's kind of the leader out there. So he was a lot of fun to watch until last week when we got to play him. Then he's not as much fun to watch, but he's earned all the attention he's getting.
It was just 1 year.
There you go. So again, Rich Rodriguez on Jacob Rodriguez. They kind of mentioned this, too. Best linebacker season since probably Manti Te'o. I mean, he was in the Heisman frontrunner position as well. So good company there. Dynamic player. And this is no fluke. He was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year last year. So stacking back-to-back seasons for him, just super impressive player for Texas Tech. You'll definitely be seeing him play at the next level. And then they have a number of impact defenders that I want to highlight too. Romello Height coming over from Georgia Tech, 7 sacks this season, two forced fumbles. So he is a person to be reckoned with on that defense. David Bailey, a guy that came over from Stanford and has had 12.5 sacks this season. I think that leads the Big 12, 2 forced fumbles. So these guys are going to be a very big challenge for our offensive line that has struggled this year. And then Bryce Pollock, another nice player too. You see the 4 interceptions there for him. So they are good at all 3 levels, Texas Tech. I'm very nervous for how the West Virginia offensive line is going to hold up in this one because they've had issues, as we know, all season, and this is just going to be a really tough matchup for West Virginia's offense. I expect a lot of quick passes and things like that because I'm not sure how much time Scotty Fox is going to get in the pocket versus this dynamic defense. And that's all I got. So wanted to keep this one pretty short. I think as we know, West Virginia is going to be the massive underdog in this game. I think the title of this is fitting, the final exam. Usually final exams are the toughest challenge of the season, and that is what's going to happen here, right? This is going to be a very challenging game for West Virginia, but if they can keep it close, who knows if they can get a win at home. This could be a massive signature win for West Virginia and a springboard into next season, as we've had a lot of momentum with the recruiting that we've had recently, the way we played at the end of the season so far. I think there's a lot of positives here, but this one will definitely be an uphill battle for West Virginia. I appreciate you guys. Enjoy rivalry week. Enjoy all the great games. Let's go Mountaineers. We'll talk to you guys after the game on Saturday.